my view is that in the case where it's not a rape case, it's not the pregnancy does not stem as a result of rape. That and in the case at the point of sentience or later, that with the potential exception of that the mother's life is the mother's going to die.
Uh-huh.
Aside from all that, then abortion would be immoral.
Okay. After the point of sentience,
Mm-hmm.
and then exceptions for rape and
Mm-hmm.
for
The mother will die.
threatening illness.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I understand that. Is it just something about rape? Because it's...
Yeah. Rape, on my view, would annul the personal responsibility.
So are you saying that people should take children's to term because of a sense of personal responsibility?
Because on my view, they would be responsible for their existence in the dependent state on them. Yeah.
Right. Well, but it's something to do with the agent's choices. Like, can I
Yeah.
just assume that, if I come up with a scenario that isn't technically rape, but goes beyond the person's choices?
Yeah. No. It's not rape in simpliciter. It's rape just happens to fall under a category.
And it's the most common thing we would
Yeah.
probably bring. Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense. Okay, I kind of understand where you're coming from there. What is the actual problem against do you find any consistency problem with just being okay with abortion?
Well, yeah. I don't know if it's a consistency problem. You can find consistent ways to be okay with abortion. It's just not something I would see as, there are ways you can make any position, many positions consistent, but
Yeah, sure.
none of the ways that I've seen that I would be ever like intellectually honestly comfortable with.
Uh-huh.
So,
Well, I just
like
mean
if
consistent and as a reasonable position, not something that
yeah, no,
somebody's putting on airs to say that they hold.
Yeah, no, I haven't found any of those.
Right. So if I said I'm pro-choice,
Mm-hmm.
what would be the problem with that? Like,
Okay.
I find that
Are you okay with killing a newborn baby?
no,
Okay. Are you okay with killing a fetus that is sentient?
a
And
fetus that is sentient. Like, do you mean just outside of the body, like in any
no,
scenario
in the
that
body. Are you okay with killing a fetus in the body that is sentient?
Yeah.
Okay. What's the difference between what's the symmetry breaker there?
Well, I guess I would have to appeal to the fact that it just hasn't become a responsibility until it's come to term.
What's the criteria for responsibility?
I think it might just be the coming to term with it.
So the criteria for and by coming to term, you mean what precisely?
Like giving birth.
Giving birth. Okay. Can the responsibility okay, so responsibility, so the breaker is that an individual does not have a responsibility for a sentient being that they have generated and forced to be in existence on them until the point at which they give birth. And at that point, then they have a responsibility. So like a second before they give birth, they can chop it up.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Chop it up.
Well, yeah,
I mean, that's very...
No, that's not very hyperbolic or anything. That's how the majority of abortions are performed.
It's hard to say because I'm trying to imagine this scenario, right?
Wait, I'm sorry, just 1 second. Do you know how abortions are performed, in the majority of cases?
No, actually, I don't.
So they are chopped up, in the majority of cases. It's not like just a separation and there are cases like that with mesoprostol or whatnot. Wait, hold on 1 second. Just having a chat with someone about abortion. Okay.
Because what I notice about people's dispositions on this topic is it's very much a type of sentiment where there's this certain point where the development, perhaps by appearance, or something becomes so emotionally impacting that it becomes a different action to us, and that seems to be all it rests on.
Well, no, I'm not trying to use any like go down any. I mean, I don't know what the relevance really. I'm just describing it as it actually is. When I say chop it up, like that's
Oh no,
just
no,
me.
I'm sorry, that wasn't a counterpoint to that.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. When I say chop it up, like I'm just describing how they're
Yeah,
most
yeah.
how they're typically performed. Like the performance is cutting it up. It's not just like the separation that some people try to make. Anyway, so let me just ask this then. Okay.
Hmm.
So let's say and is it just that it's in the womb, or like could it be like attached to any part of the body? Is it just womb simpliciter? It's just like that three-dimensional spatial connection to like what we recognize as a uterus that makes like a responsibility happen or not happen, or is it like some sort of like attachment to the body?
Um, well, I think there's different variations that you could come up with there, and I might have answers to different
Well, let me give
answers
you an
to different
example,
ones
right?
of
Like
them.
let's say instead of like let's say I could generate a fetus and it would be attached to like a lump on my skin or something. And
Uh-huh.
it would grow and grow and grow, and at 9 months it will be like separated from my skin as a baby, right?
But it's just growing on the side of your arm or something.
Yeah, yeah. Like, do you take the same view then?
It might actually just seem too real at that point.
So like the
But
fact
I'm
that it's like
unsure.
chopped
Like
up
I,
is
I could
like
see a different range, right? Like if it was very early on. But what I'm noticing about my dispositions is that the external appearance of it changes like the acceptable range to earlier than it would
so
for an internal state.
so let's say like this there was a woman and her she had like see-through tissue. Like her skin and her subcutaneous fat and the muscle of the uterus itself were like transparent, right?
So you could see inside of her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Like
that's so
does that
bizarre.
like change your view on when the responsibility occurs?
That might. I mean, that like because it is this development of a realness of it, like of I suppose of how much you've bonded with it, and there's something to being able to view or witness it or experience the baby in other ways that you would expect this bond to be more meaningful.
When you say
Whereas
bond, like, what do you mean when you say bond? Like, I'm just asking you how you would evaluate, like, just some random um, fetus, like whether you think it's right or wrong to chop it up, right? Like, it's not like you're like developing this relationship with the fetus or something. I don't know what you mean by bond.
well, that's kind of what I would be expecting of the mother. It's just like I guess what I'm judging here is her dispositions towards her own baby and sort of the ways I would expect her to bond with human beings.
Okay, so let's say, wait a minute, hold on. So, because we're getting back to the original question for a symmetry breaker, right? So let's say that a mother wasn't bonding with, her baby, right? Like, or her newborn baby
Uh-huh.
outside of the womb. Like, do we think that would be like, do we think at that point, if the mother decided to take a sharp instrument and cut the newborn baby up, like, would you have some kind of moral issue with that?
Yeah, because I'd be like, why isn't she like this is abnormal? This is abnormal bonding. You should care about this baby.
Why should she care about like what does
Well,
the
that's
break?
just my moral disposition. I hear about this situation and that
So
becomes
let's
my
say there was
moral
a cloth.
sensation about it.
Okay, let's say there was like a covering, a cloth. Like it was the baby was born, but there was a cloth that covered the baby such that the mother couldn't see the baby, right? So so like in that case, the mother can't see the fetus and the mother can't see the baby. So now is it okay for the mother to take a sharp instrument and chop the baby up, the
I don't
newborn
even
baby?
know if like I buy my original answer of like the moment before it was born.
Well, if that's the case, then your symmetry breaker isn't coming to term.
No, I know. Well, that's why I'm having this conversation with you because
Yeah.
I wanted to see like how you approach
Mhm.
some of these questions because I thought some of them were interesting. And I noticed that I have these different moral dispositions, but I have sort of trouble explaining them. So I would figure
Right.
you could just ask me questions.
Well, yeah, I'm just showing you where like all of these proposed symmetry breakers lead, and they lead it seems like they're leading to positions where you yourself are not comfortable. Like, for example, if you say like, okay, well, the difference is you could see it or not. Well, okay, well, if the baby is born and immediately covered in a cloth, it seems like you're not comfortable with chopping the baby up. If the difference is coming to term, like you may not even be
Yeah,
comfortable.
sure, but there seems to be like a conceptual realness about knowing that it's out, even if you can't like technically
Okay,
see
let's say
it.
the mother didn't know. Say the mother didn't know that it was out. Say she like developed psychosis or something. You may not judge the mother, but like you could still judge the action. Like we can look at actions and say, okay, wait, I would prefer that this action not happen. Like,
I don't know if I can like put morality in terms of actions that
okay,
don't
well,
have
we can
anything
have
to do with
legal positions.
agents.
That's fine. We can have legal positions. Like we can say, like, okay, so in other words,
Well, no, that's not my point, right? Like,
okay, what's the point?
if you were to say, is murder wrong, and then you
Mhm.
take agents out of that question, then I don't even know if it's a moral question anymore, right? Like, if you ask me, is
I'm
it
not talking
wrong
about.
for
I didn't
this
use the word
machine to
murder.
kill
Wait,
things? It's
wait,
like,
wait,
no.
wait. Shut it. Like, I never used the word murder. I used the
I
phrase
know I
chopping.
wasn't saying you were using the word murder.
Oh
That
yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
to make a different point.
Okay. So hold on. So the initial question is, um, the question is okay. So why do we hold the view that we wouldn't want to stop? So like here's the ultimate question. Like in the case of the newborn baby, we would want to stop the mother from chopping it up. I think we
Yeah,
both agree. Okay.
yeah, that
So
seems right.
in the case of the fetus, we would want to we would the position that you would have to take is that to be pro-choice anyway is that you
Hmm.
would not want to stop the mother from chopping up the fetus if she so
At
wishes.
some point.
At some point, yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, to varying degrees of pro-choice versus pro-life, sure. So the question here is like, what's the symmetry breaker? What
No,
now?
of
If the
course.
symmetry breaker is like, okay, well, there's a sense of realness. So let's go with that. So there's a sense of realness about the newborn baby where there is not a sense of realness. So like, that's very vague. I don't know what that means. Like,
It is. Well, I think it's meaningful but vague.
yeah. So like, we have to break it down. Like, in other words, I need it. If we're proposing it, anytime we propose a symmetry breaker, and if there's nothing wrong with something that's vague, as long as it's clear enough to the point where I can clearly see, okay, this is what places it in that category versus the other category, right?
Sure.
So I would need to like get some criteria of realness, whatever that means, such that I can clearly see why the newborn is in the realness category and the fetus is not in the realness category.
Well, do you agree like that? That's a term that seems meaningful within the discussion, even if it's at the moment vague.
Well, I don't even I don't
Or do you
know.
just
I don't
feel like it's not even meaningful? Like you don't even
no, I
understand
don't
to any
without more
amount what I mean?
clarification. Without more clarification, I don't even I mean I don't even know what if it would be meaningful to me.
Well, like okay, so say a mother is she gets pregnant, right? And
Mhm.
from the beginning, she says, it doesn't even feel real. Like it's just like there's nothing bodily changing about me. And as my pregnancy went along, it became more and more real to me that I'm going to have a child, that this is a child inside me. And she gives birth to it, and she says, that's when I really knew it was real. Like, if
Mhm.
somebody uses that sort of terminology,
Oh,
would you
now I have
find.
more of a yeah, I have more of an understanding about what that means now. In terms of it being meaningful to me, it certainly would be meaningful, but not to the point where it would make or break a difference in my position that it's in
No, I'm
terms
not
of
asking to
chopping.
break your position. I'm
Oh,
just
okay, yeah,
saying,
yeah, yeah.
do these
Yeah.
terms seem to carry meaning?
So
Whether
yeah,
or not I can, like, even
yeah, yeah,
say where the hell that happens.
yeah. So like for example, okay, so then for example, if a mother, let's say we have a mother who did not have that, perception throughout the entire pregnancy, like
Well, this is my
that
view, right? Like, I'm not judging. I'm not just saying that whatever someone else thinks is real is therefore moral. I'm saying this is how I
Mhm.
like my conception of it comes
Oh,
along.
you conceive it to be real. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I still don't like if I still don't I'm still not like understanding what like I understand if you give me the if you're giving me like the mother's perception, like I understand like okay, the mother is experiencing the effects of pregnancy, there's
Sure.
like there's the mother is there's hormonal changes happening that can affect the mother state. There's The baby can kick and the mother can just, like, I understand all that. But if you're telling me it's your view, then I'm back to the same problem. Like, I don't understand what places one in one category versus the other in another category.
Well, I guess it would be my understanding of how much more real it would be, I guess.
Well, what does it mean? No, but it's a further problem that, like, I don't understand what you mean by real.
Well, it would be in the same notion as I described before. The only difference is the sensations are coming from me rather than the mother.
Well, no, I don't think they are. I don't think you're perceiving of the baby kicking your womb. I don't think you're perceiving the hormonal changes.
That's not what I said.
Well,
do you think that follows from what I said?
I don't. Well, then I don't know. No, maybe it may not follow, but then I just don't know what perceptions you're having. Like, what is it about? I just want to know what it is about the baby that is giving you this perception that places it in the not permissible to chop up category. That, well, here's the ultimate question. Okay, here's what I want to know. What is it about the? It's just going to be name the trait. I mean, you know this. It's going to be like name the trait. Like, what?
You mean it's a symmetry? Well, don't call everything name the trait. It's just a symmetry.
I know you don't like that terminology. I know you don't like it, but we can call it a symmetry breaker. What is it about the fetus that places it in the permissible to chop up category that if it were true about the newborn baby, that would also place it in the permissible to chop up category on your view?
I don't think there's something that could be true of a newborn baby that would place it in the permissible to chop up.
Do you think it would entail a contradiction? Do you think?
Well, there's just something there in that category of newborn baby that makes me disposed to never put it in that category. I can't add something true of it. I would have to take something away.
Okay, what is true of it that if taken away would place it in the
permissible chop category? I'm not 100% sure yet. That's why I'm having the conversation.
Right. Because I mean, the thing is, like, I like when you say this, like, okay, so you're proposing a sense of, like, I really don't know what it means. Like, I'm just being straight up honest with you. Like, I just need enough clarity to know why it's in one categorization and not the other. Like, I
understand what the question is.
Yeah.
And, like, I already admitted that the answer is sort of vague.
Well, I'm okay. Again, I'm okay with it being sort of vague. I just need it to be clear enough to understand why it's in one, how I place something in one category versus not the other category. So, for example, like, there's a vagueness in the Sorites paradox, right? Between, like, a puddle.
Yeah, of course. I know we both know this.
Yeah.
So we don't really need to go over it.
Yeah.
It's just that, like, my dispositions towards it as it develops, it, like, when I think about it,
are there any let's just try to hone in on this. So, are there any characteristics about this, like the puddle to lake, like the fetus to baby? Are there any characteristics that make you more disposed toward, like, let's not chop it up? Are there any, like, specific characteristics that push you in that direction?
Well, like even given the fact that it's human, makes me want to value it, right? Like, that's I'm on the record. Right? What's that?
Yeah, but that's going to be true of both, right?
Yeah, that's going to be true throughout the whole thing, right? So like, I have this sense of it, but, like, so the beginning motivations for me being pro-choice has to do with someone not having the chance to not ruin their life and not ruin the child's life, right? So what I'm saying is, if someone gives birth and it's reasonable to think that their life is going to be miserable because they never wanted a child, they feel forced into a life of obligation. So it's basically sort of ruining her life, and this child also is being raised by a mother who doesn't particularly want her. I feel like we're just creating these miserable lives, right? And these seem to be the initial motivations for the pro-choice stance for me. Mm-hmm. I mean, if it was the case that every time that someone had a child, everyone was always happy, I would probably just go pro-life, right? Like,
but here's the thing, like, you wouldn't, like, so in the case where there's clearly other motivations, well, presumably there may be
exactly, because there's still this timeline where I'm okay with it and a timeline where I'm not.
Right. So yeah, because you wouldn't say, like, okay, well, this mother's like, oh, I don't really like my child, I don't care about him.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And at that point, I'm still saying, well, that's too bad. It's too late now. You have a responsibility.
Right. So what my real question is, like, what are some characteristics along this timeline that you think are responsibility generating?
How would I cash out this like sense of realness? It's like I feel like it's this entire range of dispositions that continuously grow as we approach pregnancy. But like how to describe it in specific terms, I find very difficult.
Well, let me ask you this one. Do you think sentience would matter? Like, do you think like the first person perspective of whatever, like, you know, any like experience, the ability to have a thought, the ability to experience things, like that degree would push you into the responsibility like direction?
No.
So like
maybe.
Well, I mean, I think it might. I mean, if there was no sentience, like if the baby came out completely like, you know, sentience-less, like, do you think there would be a responsibility still there?
A responsibility to what? Keep it alive, you mean?
To not chop it up?
To not chop it up? Yeah, maybe not. Not like if it was like a stillborn baby, or whatever, chopping it up is not something that I would think would be morally okay.
Okay.
Right? Because I don't know if you take that stance, but like I'm not pro corpse mutilation.
Well, I'm talking about in a vacuum. Like, let's say, like, hypothetically speaking, like, it wouldn't, like, people wouldn't look at it and experience suffering for it. Like, all of this is like I'm asking about in a vacuum.
Well, I don't know what a vacuum is because I still have moral dispositions towards it myself. Right? You're asking me the question and how I would be morally affected by it.
You just like you would think something about it. So like, okay, so we can just say.
Well, what about you? Do you have the?
Oh, I wouldn't see an issue with it. If it was like not sentient, I wouldn't have a problem with it.
So you'd be okay with like some guys just like, I'm gonna just chop up this corpse for fun, and you'd be like, all right, sure.
In principle, yes.
Okay. Well, isn't that like? Do you have no sense of like human dignity, or?
I don't know what that means. Like, what do you mean when you say human dignity?
You just feel like you're losing you're undignifying a corpse by like mutilating it or having sex with it or something like that.
No, I don't think I have that view.
Okay.
At least not in principle or anything. I think that view comes from like, you know, I don't think there's anything intrinsic about like a corpse, like the orientation, like the atoms oriented on like a corpse in which way they're oriented that makes it like dignified or non-dignified in my view. But I'm just trying to. This is not about my view. Like right now in this part of the conversation, I'm just trying to figure out like what your view is, and I think you are too. So
well, I'm in tangent. I'm interested in your view as well.
Yeah, sure. So, okay, so there's something undignified to you about like chopping up, and so I mean, well, that would add I think that would add a point in favor of like, you know, with this newfound information at least, that, you know, abortions are typically performed by that very action, chopping it up with a sharp instrument.
Sure.
So I think that would, like, if you find that like if there's something about that.
Well, I mean, like in the case where you're taking it out of the womb, I'm assuming that action is being done because it's necessary in order to do the procedure. Whereas if it was a stillborn, it's not particularly necessary anymore.
Yeah, but that's fine. So like, let's say the only way to dispose of the dispose of the stillborn was to chop it up, right? So let's just say hypothetically the only way to dispose of it was to chop it up.
Yeah, I mean, if that was the only thing that you could do in some weird logical world, I can't. I'm having a hard time even imagining what that would look like, but then it wouldn't. Then it wouldn't carry the wrongness.
I can give you a way it would look. I can give you hypotheticals, but like I'm pretty sure you. I mean, like for example, let's say that the disposer was like it. You know, it only had small holes that you had to fit the squished up meat through it. You know, it wasn't large enough to put the actual corpse through.
Yeah, but then I'd be like, who the fuck made these disposers and what's wrong with them?
It's just like let's just say there was some, you know, some aliens, warped it in there, and you're just on this island, and that's what you have.
Yeah, okay. Like if you're like I said, it takes quite a bizarre scenario to think of this for me, but like
But
if
I
you were
think those are the
forced
most
in that
valuable
scenario,
scenarios.
then
I think
yeah.
those are actually the most valuable scenarios. But anyway, because they abstract things away from like a lot of the
Well,
stuff.
no, I mean I'm okay with pushing like
Yeah.
hypotheticals to limits, so long as you don't push them beyond necessary limits in order to extract the values that you wanted to isolate.
So okay. So now let's ask the question for the baby then. So let's say the only way for this woman to kill her baby, her newborn baby, was to chop it up, right? Presumably, I think you would still have an issue with that.
The only way to dispose of it, like
No,
it's
the only
dead.
way to well, now we're talking about like a non brain dead baby, right?
Oh, well then why would
Yeah,
I be okay with killing it at all?
yeah, you wouldn't be okay with killing it at all. Okay, so what okay, yeah, you're right. So what I'm trying to figure out is, does sentience make any difference to you? So let's say if it was a brain dead, well, here's why, right? Because like if it was a brain dead baby, you wouldn't have an issue with chopping it up if it was necessary to dispose of it.
Uh-huh.
But if it was not a brain dead baby, if it had some degree of sentience, then do you have a problem with chopping it up if that was the necessary means of disposing it?
Wait, what, you're just chopping up an actual just baby, or
A baby that has some degree, any degree of sentience. Like it could be a mentally handicapped baby that has a lower degree of sentience. It could be like a
but I'm not okay with any chopping up of
okay.
any birth baby. So like it's
Okay.
already within that category.
Yeah. So let's say, okay, so I'm just trying to think of like what is separating the two on your view. Like I don't. Well, actually, I guess you'll just have to tell me. I mean, what is? Yeah, because
Well,
I'm not.
no, that's fine. Your
I don't know
hypotheticals
the
help
category.
because
Do
I
you think it's
think.
the size? Do you think it's like the size of the what's making the difference? Like,
Well, I don't know. Like it might be irreducible to like not reducible to like just one or two factors. It could just be like
oh, that's fine. We can do
a
stacks if you
host.
like. We
No,
can say like,
it's not that it's just stacks, but this is also just like what makes a human, right? Like what makes
well,
a
you
human
agreeing with
could
me
be
that
like
it's human,
1,000
right?
different unconscious calculations that your brain does in order to
Well,
put things into a category.
I don't think it's about what makes it a human because it's human throughout the whole process.
No,
I
I'm
think
not
it's
saying that. What I'm trying to bring through that analogy is that it could be like thousands of small unconscious things that like my brain uses in order to calculate, right? So then when you ask me what is the trait or the traits, it's like it goes beyond my ability to explicate into language what it is.
well, I mean that's fine. I just like even if that's the case, it's because you wouldn't be able to explicate it, you still wouldn't be able to provide me an answer, and I wouldn't be able to really evaluate it.
No, that's true. Like you wouldn't be wrong there. But like I'm sort of giving sort of just generalities when I'm saying that like I'm noticing a difference from initial pregnancy to birth. Like if you were to ask me like the moment right before it comes out, right? I have a different reaction to that than if you said a month earlier, than if you said a month earlier, than if you said a month
Well, let me
earlier.
ask you this. Let's ask like this way. Like, let's say we're dealing with a pregnancy and there's a fetus that like is as sentient as I am, right? Like, like they're able and like is as intelligent as I am, right? Like, let's just say that they're able to have like their
Uh-huh.
own world of experience, right, in the womb, right? Like, would you be okay with like that being chopped up?
I would probably give it value if it was self-aware, like by my value of self-awareness that I've been describing.
Yeah. Well, let's say it had sentience and so let's say it didn't have self-awareness, but it had like it was able to experience things at the level of like a chicken, right? Or a rabbit or something.
Okay. I mean, I don't think that makes a difference.
Okay. All right. So a human. Okay, so that wouldn't be the difference. There's some other difference that's differentiating between a fetus and a baby. And
Right? Like what is like the appreciable sentient value of the development of a child? It's like, well, oh, and I mean, like for the sake of this conversation, I'm
I could go
granting
through that with you if you want.
I'm
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sure.
Yeah, no, I think
Like
so I
what?
mean obviously it's I mean I can't solve solipsism versus panpsychism or anywhere along that spectrum. So I'm not going to be able to solve that philosophical problem, but I think there's a reasonable case to be made that
Well,
senti I think there's a reasonable case to be made that we should at least have a precautionary principle for sentience at around 6 weeks gestational time or later.
oh, I still want to debate against that, but I just, you know what? For the sake of the argument, I
I
don't.
can, and I'm aware of all the publications. I'm aware of all the publications by ACOG. I'm aware of the publications in JAMA. I'm aware of like everything.
Who are those?
Every wait, what?
Who are those?
American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology. JAMA is the Journal of American Academy.
Because I'll be honest, I take almost no stock in any scientific
Yeah,
understanding of sentience. Like the argument is philosophical.
yeah, exactly, and that's why I think the arguments against sentience at that time frame are philosophically devoid, not medically devoid. Like the problems with them are philosophical. I think that
Well,
my
whether
position,
I'm saying whether or not something is sentient or not is a philosophical
yeah,
question.
yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, and that's why I'm not saying I can prove sentience at the point of 6 weeks. I just take it to be that there's enough there that I would have like a precautionary principle.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, that would be my view.
But like, what let's say what would be the nature? Let's just
Yeah,
say, for the sake of argument, there is a phenomenological world for this being at some point.
yeah.
What is the nature of it, and where
Mhm.
is it gaining appreciable value due to different qualities here?
Yeah, so we don't know what the nature is, obviously, but based on the available data we have parallels to beings such as preterm babies that have been delivered,
Mm-hmm.
rabbits, various different creatures that like such as various different animals. Um, I can go through which animals specifically if you like. I know rabbits were one of them. So there's certain parallels based on the like EEG data for those creatures.
Mm-hmm. And what capacities will we be looking at? Like, we can say there's a sentient phenomenological world of sight, vision, right? There's colors, there's a sense of sound, perhaps there's a sensation of pain, something like that,
I
right?
don't know about sight. I don't know about sight because that is a different modality that develops later. But sound, there is some evidence that sound
Uh
is
huh.
there. Yeah, so sound, yes. Um, I'm not sure about other modalities, but based on the EEG data, it's similar. There's a lot of parallels between that and animals like rabbits, for example. So I'm not entirely sure exactly what different senses are there to what degree. I don't think sight would
Uh
be
huh.
there too, but I do think other I do think there's some evidence that sound may be there, um, or some other experience.
I guess what I'm saying here is that
Mhm.
I find it hard to see appreciable value just because
Mhm.
something has gained a sensation of sight.
Or about sensation of pain. Do you think that would appreciate value?
Not necessarily. Like
Like if it experienced pain when it was chopped up,
well, yeah, sure, right? Like causing pain,
right?
like I can see, but just the capacity for pain,
Mhm.
it doesn't
Okay.
seem to be as relevant,
Well, it's
right? Like,
relevant if it's relevant if the way of executing it is chopping
sure,
it up.
no, like I'm saying, like I mean,
Yeah.
this is even my principle towards animals, right? Like, I view animals in a very utilitarian way, in that like causing them suffering is a bad thing, and giving them pleasure can be considered a
Right.
good thing. But
All
like,
right. So
just
I
the
mean, I guess
capacity is not that relevant.
yeah. So I mean, like for my view, my view is essentially this: is like I take a look at I take a look at a newborn baby, and I look at it, and I look at a fetus, and I just other than sentience, which I do value, I don't see really specifically the potential for sentience for all beings that have at one point reached sentience. That's my that's my position of value. It's why it doesn't get into sperm rights, even though it's potential. It's why it also doesn't lead to killing people in comas.
Mhm.
If they have a chance of like waking up, like a reasonable chance of waking up, then
No,
I leave
I
that.
already know those views have
Yeah, yeah,
defended positions, and
yeah.
I'm not gonna
So
go that route.
yeah, um, I'm not sure of any ability to communicate with anyone else or myself like this a symmetry breaker that I would actually be comfortable with. I would clearly be able to categorize in one category versus another. Like that's what I would look for. I would look
I
for,
think
okay,
maybe the difficulty and the reason that no one might be able to present this is because it's such a spectrum of minute things, right? So when you're looking for symmetry breakers, you're often looking for simplified traits and very easily communicated things. But whenever something is a conglomeration of, you know, small minute changes and you have a spectrum of dispositions towards it, it's not the sort of thing that communicates well.
sure. But even if that's the case, like here's the thing: if someone like had me like 5 pages worth of like a conjunctive traits, right? I literally will take the time to look through all 5 pages and like take time to like try to imagine that in my mind. Like it's to that level. Like I will happily look at that. Um, and if I wanted to be able to write out other like symmetry breakers, I wouldn't have a problem writing it out, writing 5 pages of fucking conjunctions and like trying to imagine what that would look like. But I still just don't see any way of that I would be comfortable with of like communicating the categorization of one into another. And even if like there could very well be a way to do it, but so
Mm-hmm.
long as it's prohibitive to communicate with it, there's just no way I could interact with it if it can't be communicated to me.
But you could take somebody on their word that they experience it as such.
I could take someone on their word that um that they don't have a problem with it, sure. But what I'm not going to take someone on their word is that they have like um that they're aware of the symmetry breaker. Even if they like have some subconscious like experience of like some
Well, I don't
like
even like calling it a symmetry breaker if it's like a spectrum of disposition, right? Because it sounds like at some point it just breaks.
well, yeah, at some point it breaks, but what I'm interested in is if this what I'm interested in is what is like some way of categorizing whether the individual is broken the symmetry breaker, whether the individual is
But
not.
like for Sorority's questions, you would never say like, "What's the symmetry breaker between a puddle and a lake?" Right?
Well, no, I would not. However, I would still say I would need enough clarity to be. I still need enough clarity to be able to categorize any of these classes into puddles versus lakes. So, for example,
Well,
I
no, not
clearly
necessarily. Like because the way language can be learned isn't necessarily through definition, but through pointing to reference, right? Like I say, this is Lake Michigan. I say this is you know, I just point to various lakes and I point to various puddles, and you would unconsciously, you know, internalize ways of categorizing them, and then you would
yeah.
find things that are in between those
No,
things and be like,
that's
well,
fine.
I'm not really
That's
sure.
fine. But I can give a symmetry. No, but I can give a symmetry breaker that subsumes all of that. Like, right? Like if you say a puddle versus a lake, I can say, okay, well the magnitude of the amount of water is what breaks the symmetry. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like and that's true. At some point it does. But like what is the symmetry breaker between that spectrum of a fetus to
I mean, okay, the spectrum, I mean, could be the physical development. It could be the time investment. It could
so by
be
physical, well, let's go one by one. So physical development.
right.
So that I wouldn't be comfortable with this as a symmetry breaker. And if we're just talking about the fit, if we're and by physical, I'm talking about like non like mental development, like the body. Unless
Uh-huh.
you're referring to that in some other way. So if you're just talking about the body as opposed to the mental, um, so I wouldn't be comfortable with that. So like for example, if a baby had very poor body development, right? Had the same body development um, as a fetus, right? A fetal body popped out of a baby. However, like all the mentation was the same. The mentation was not altered. Like I would have a problem
Okay,
with
for
category.
us non-sciencey people.
Mm-hmm.
What was that word?
Which word?
Mutation?
Mentation.
Mentation.
Like like mental faculties.
That's a word? Okay.
Um,
I've just never come across it for whatever reason.
yeah, mentation is a word that means mental activity.
Mentation.
mentation.
Yeah, all right. I've never used that word in my life.
So if I could, it's fine. I could just say mental activity instead of mentation.
No, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So if the mental activity of this fetus was not, I'm sorry, if this newborn baby was not altered, but the body was, it had the body of a fetus, right?
Uh-huh.
Like I wouldn't be comfortable with taking a curette and chopping the organism up, right? That
What are
wouldn't
we
work.
saying after birth?
Yeah.
Well, right. We're already going to put everything in the category of after birth as impermissible, right? So there's no point of being like,
Well, but the
hey, let's
question is
look at your
why. Well,
trait.
hold on, wait. But the question is why. Like,
Well,
is
we
it
could just
after birth?
say a trait is that it's been birthed, right?
Well,
That
we
is
already
an automatic
we already
view
well
of
wait.
installation of value.
Well, we already said that. Wait, okay. So wait, hold on. So, are you saying it's like a sufficiency criteria? So if
Yeah,
an
like a
organism is
sufficiency
birthed,
criteria.
a sufficiency, not a necessary criteria, but a sufficiency criteria.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Let me just. So, well, I don't think it is a sufficiency criteria to not be chopped up, because if it is brain dead, right?
We can just conjunct it to like
Okay,
birthed
yeah, you'd have
and
to conjunct birth and not brain dead,
yeah, sure.
right? So so you have to add other. Okay, cool. So birth and not brain dead. It's just like to me, I just don't get why the birth makes the fucking difference. Like, here's the thing. Like, I to me, that's just like a spatial, three-dimensional spatial relationship that I just don't care about. Like, why would a second pre-birth and a second after birth? Like, why the fuck would I care? Like,
I just think people do.
and I know people do. I just I don't. Like, I see that. I know. I agree with you that people do.
Like I just feel it affects me too. Like I just feel that sensation.
It's just like this.
It's like the
just,
birth
let me
of a
ask you,
human life. It just
like,
seems so
let
meaningful.
me ask you this. Like, let me ask you this though. Like, let's say a woman took a newborn baby, right?
Uh-huh.
And let's say he shoved it and let's say she shoved it back into her womb.
Yeah, but it's already been born.
Okay, wait a minute. So, well,
it's been birthed.
Yes, it has been birthed, but that's going to lead to another interesting hypothetical. Okay. So, let's say that a fetus is being gestated in a woman, and a magician waves his wand, right?
Okay.
Such that the fetus is very quickly birthed out of the womb and quickly shoved back in the womb, and it took like a matter of a few milliseconds. That whole process, and now the fetus is right back in the womb where it started. It is the case that the fetus has been birthed, right?
You come up with the craziest shit.
Yeah, no, it's very crazy. But no,
that's not a criticism, by the way.
Yeah, like, but you'll notice here that it is the case that the fetus has already been birthed. It is also the case that the fetus is back in gestation mode. Now, do you take the view that it is no longer okay to chop the fetus up?
No. I can't stand by that.
Well, so then it's not the case that the trait is already being birthed. Then. Yeah.
But I don't know if there's like a difference of natural means or
that it's naturally birthed.
The fact that you invoked a magician might have.
I don't have to invoke like magic. I can invoke like a technology to do it, like a ray gun or something that atomizes the particles and or it doesn't matter. Like I can invoke technology that could be futuristic to do it.
Sure.
Yeah, like
but I know, but you're like invoking these like non-natural means. But like I sort of get like the point. And I somewhat agree with you on this notion that it just like it doesn't particularly make much sense.
Yeah, the point is like the very fact that something has already been birthed, like people like will appeal to that when they hear an example like this, right?
Sure.
They'll when they hear the example of like a woman shoving the baby back into a room, they'll be like, "Oh wait, no, it's already been birthed." But then when you think about it, like, okay, wait a minute, like, why do I care about that simpliciter? Like, here's the hypothetical: like a magician waves his wand, it's quickly birthed and re-put into the womb, or a technology was able to like quickly take it out of the womb and put it back in the womb, like to quickly birth it and quickly unbirth it. Like, okay, well, so what? Like, who the fuck cares? Like, why would
No,
that change my
I
life?
think I agree with you.
Yeah. So then we're back to responding to the original question then, right? So like, so let's say a woman takes a baby, a newborn baby, and shoves it back into her womb, right? And now it's back in gestate, and now it's being gestated for another 9 months. Like, can the woman chop the baby up then?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah. So say a woman takes a newborn baby, shoves it back up her womb, such that we're back. It's being gestated again.
Yeah. I mean, I would just be against that.
Okay. So like, why?
I'm not 100% sure.
And so you take two different. Okay. So, but the point is here is that what was the reason I gave the example? The reason I gave the example is that, oh no, here's the case. The reason I gave the example is that it's not the case that births is for sufficiency criteria.
Yeah. No, I got that from that.
Yeah.
That the birth can't be a sufficiency criteria. Although I can't imagine a single scenario where through normal means somebody brings a child to gestation, gives birth, and then I would be okay with killing it. Like in the category of all things in that category, along with obviously the conjunct that is not a brain dead, I can't find a single disposition of mind that says it's okay with killing it. Now,
the birthing is not the point is that the birthing is not like
no. But I'm describing the normal scenario of the 9 months gestation, like the normal human experience, right? So when I come along and I say, well, I think it might be part of the explanation is the birth, and you show, well, it can't be just the birth, then it's like, okay, that's true. It can't be just the birth. But when I still imagine the scenario, I still can't find a way to make it feel okay.
Well, you just no. I'm not asking you to make it feel. The point of me giving the example is not to make you say that it's okay. It's like if you say that. Wait, hold on. So
no, I know that, but my point here is that I think there is a necessary or a sufficient condition, but that my explanation of it had to have been incomplete due to your hypothetical.
Okay, so let me just go back to okay, so we're trying to find a difference, right? We're trying to find a difference between like what, because even in the Socrates paradox, we could list of like a variable that like clearly would end up in a difference. Like with the puddle becoming a lake, we can list the magnitude of the amount of water in this body, and that will be a sufficiency criteria at some point. Like at some point, you are getting a lake. I don't fucking care. Like if you scale it up, you're gonna find that the puddle becomes like a lake.
You've gone too far. It's an ocean. But
yeah,
yes, I get your point.
But it's still true that at some point it will be a lake.
Yeah. I'm just taking the piss.
So we can do that. Now, can we do that with a fetus? Like, can we, even if it may be a Socrates paradox, like what is it there that we can label that would subsume any of this, that we would say, okay, like, hey, this is what we're getting. Now we can't kill it.
Well, let's
now
say
it's in this category.
Okay, let's make this attempt here. Is that it hasn't been born yet, and there's a Socrates of development, of physical development, and this puts it into a category of okayness to do so.
Okay, so it has never been born.
Yeah.
And okay, so and it has this like development, and that puts it in the category of okay to do so. So
we're gonna look at a fetus.
So 1 second before.
Yeah.
So 1 second before birth, like you're okay with chopping it up.
Well, no, we're not gonna like this is why we're gonna run it along a spectrum of
Okay.
dispositions, right? So we're gonna say we know that the fetus is on one end of a disposition where we're just totally fine with it, right? And then we're hitting like 6 7 months, and we're
Sure.
getting the uneasiness. We're going to the second before, and we're almost
Yeah.
feeling identical, but
Let me ask
still
you this.
different.
Let me ask you this. When you're talking about development, is it the Sorites paradox of physical development or mental development that's doing it for you?
I mean, it could be both.
Right. So the reason I think this is important, is because one of the main arguments I have is that what we think of the mental development, how we like generally perceive or think what's going on with a fetus along that sorority spectrum really needs to be shifted. In other words, it's really I make the case that it's a lot that we have reason to believe that it's more than what we're thinking when we look at that sorority's paradox. In other words, if we're looking at the spectrum of a puddle to a lake, really we should be looking at the spectrum of what that spectrum really is. We have reason to believe what that spectrum really is a lake to an ocean instead. In terms of the mental development. Are you following that?
I'm not sure I see how your analogy transfers there.
So for example, let's say we have like
you're just trying to say it's more important than we think it is.
No, that's not.
Oh,
That's not
no,
what I'm
okay,
saying.
it's not.
What is actually happening, what is actually there, is more than what we think it is. So
Ah,
I'm saying, yeah. What I'm saying is like we look at a fetal development and we have this like these preconceived notions about how much sorry to use the word mentation.
no, you can use it now. I know what it means now.
Yeah. So we have this preconceived notion of how much mentation is there.
Uh-huh.
But that's forming our like our moral dispositions toward that individual. But what I'm making the case is that sorority that spectrum is actually shifted to a greater degree than what we previously thought it was.
So like, how would you describe the mental capabilities such that they would sound morally like relevant?
So like imagine that you took a rabbit, right, and you blinded the rabbit so like it couldn't see.
Uh-huh.
But it could hear. Like you took some of the sensations away, like its sensory apparatuses away.
Sure.
But like it still can like experience thoughts. It can sleep. It may very well be able to dream.
Can you cash out thoughts for me?
Okay, so I haven't gone delved deep into the philosophy of mind.
Okay.
To be able to cash that out. So
to me, when I think of thoughts, or like when humans have thoughts, we think of words running through our heads, right? Which to symbolize certain things and abstraction. And I'm not sure if that's kind of where you're going with a rabbit.
Well, I don't know what kind of thoughts rabbits. I do. I mean, I don't know what kind of thoughts rabbits may have or may not have, based on how you're using the word thought. Do you think rabbits have thoughts?
I mean, like, I'm sure that they use their brains in order to calculate things, but I don't know if that I would say that the way we use the word thoughts, as in I'm thinking right now, I would think that a rabbit does any of that.
Well, not in the same way, but like they can think of experiences. Like they can do you think that? Well, I mean, I just asked. Do you think they can think of experiences
like memories? Like just experience? I don't know.
Like they can have a memory. I'll give you an example. Like
a conscious experience of one, right? And it's not just like unconsciously.
Can a rabbit dream of like the time, like that time it chewed on a carrot? Right.
I mean, you do see dogs like running around and stuff. That gives you ideas that they have dreams.
Like, and you see like when a dog is sleeping, like they're like having these like barking. They're like almost like have this weird like barking.
Sure.
I don't know. I have a dog that does.
I don't know if I would cash that out under the word thoughts. Like to read, like to have experiences that are dreams. Sure. I mean, I'll buy that.
Like it has like to have like experience. Yeah. So having an experience like a dream. Right. So like I have like that. We don't typically think like really early fetuses can have like dreaming experience, like 6-week fetuses. Like no one thought I don't think anyone like I'll just tell you that the consensus of the medical community, which I believe they're dead wrong about, is that like a fetus like as early as 6 weeks like could have dreams, could have experiences dreaming
Of being in the womb earlier.
well whatever experience comes with being in the womb, like this whatever experiences they may be able to have from being in the womb. It could be it could be a float, whether that's like a floating sensation or whether that's like,
so really being awake and being asleep is just almost identical.
Well, no, not necessarily. No, I don't think that follows. There are some experiences that can be had, like, so like they can have proprioceptive, they can maybe have like the primordial proprioceptive orientation, like that are in the inner ears, for example.
Well, I don't know if you agree with this, but dreams are made up of aspects of our previous experiences.
Oh no, if you want to say like, okay, that's fine. Like if you want to say break the distinction that way, like, okay, that's fine. I mean, but the point is, like, in order to, like, I don't know what it means to, like, I don't know what it would mean to dream without having some experience to dream about. Like, I don't know, like, there would have to be some,
But I guess my point is, like, if there was some hypothetical being whose conscious experience, it was completely compromised of blueness, and it had the ability to dream, its dreams is basically the exact same thing as being awake.
Yeah, it wouldn't dream of blueness, right? No, I agree. But more importantly, like, if there was a being that had zero experiences, like could not have any experiences, then I don't know how it would be able to dream.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
No, but I guess I just don't see, like, the strength of the argument of saying a fetus can dream.
The strength of the argument. The strength of the argument is that it can have experience. Like, people, it can have the strength of the argument is that before, it used to be the case that a lot of people would look at a 6-week-old fetus, right, and think that it just doesn't have experiences. Like, they would say, like, no, like, this 6-week-old fetus is very early, it's not sentient, right?
Sure.
And they would, like, start that sorority spectrum up at, like, a really later date.
So,
like, the fetus would become sentient and have experiences at, like, like 24 weeks or something like that. Okay. And what I'm saying, and that a lot of people see it that way. A lot of people don't think, like, these really early stage fetuses have that form of mental development. And what I'm saying is that the Sorites paradox has shifted. It's shifted such that really these things start way earlier than we thought it would.
But do you really feel like that changes people's moral dispositions? Because, like, once you start describing the nature of that sentience, it just doesn't really seem.
No, I think it absolutely. Oh, it absolutely does. Like, well, I know it depends on who you're talking to. Like, I can tell you, like, in the vegan community, that's changed a lot of people's perceptions. Yeah, like, I was able to get, like, a whole swath of vegans, like, once this argument is presented, like, holy shit, I'm pro-life now. Like, just immediately.
Yeah, but you might be able to sell snake water.
No, this is towards vegan. No, just to be clear, like, I'm not, like, here's the thing, like, in the vegan community, I don't know if you're familiar with, like, the ethos of it, but, like, there's a very divided camp about me. Like, there are camps of vegans who, like,
yeah, but that's irrelevant, right? The fact that there's a divided camp doesn't mean that there's not fanatics who hang on your word, right?
No. They don't hang on my word. I'm saying, like, they're the people who despise me and look to debunk me at any turn.
Yeah, like, I'm telling but that has nothing to do with what I just said, right? Because let's just say that there are people who are very fanatical and.
But I've been able to convince them, right?
Okay. So you're trying to say you've convinced the people against you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can see what you're trying to say.
Yeah. So I mean, these aren't people I could sell snake oil to. They hate me and want to. They want to debunk everything I say at every turn.
Sure.
And yet, once I, like, show them the data on this and show them my arguments and position on this, they're like, "Holy shit! I'm changing my view. I'm mostly pro-life now." Like,
because the fetus can be sentient earlier, and that's just done all the work.
Yeah.
I guess that just seems bizarre to me.
Yeah, but the point is, the further point for you would be that, if the Sorites paradox for mentally is shifted, then there would be whatever point you would, if at any point you would draw some precautionary principle, it should be shifted too. If that makes, unless that precautionary principle like still has to, for some weird reason, take place out past birth rather than before birth.
Right, but I could have, like, let's say that my disposition right now was that, or my previous understanding was that, let's say, 3-month-old, fetuses, those are the ones that obtain sentience, and you convince me it's 6 weeks, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that was putting in much work before, such that it would be putting in much more work now.
Well, the reason it's work is because even if there's like some you're telling me that there's some aspects of mental development that are pointing you into the direction.
Oh, I'm saying it could be, but I'm not 100%
You don't know. Okay, all right. So, well, let's explore that then. I mean, so
like is your position that it's all mental and a 0% physical? Like there's no amount of a developed being that like changes how you feel about it?
Correct. And everything that would change my feeling about it would be just like something that like is external to that, like not intrinsically per se. It's just like, so for example, if you say, well, oh, it's not this developed, so it's going to die like in 2 seconds or something, right?
Okay, let me try to like suss this out if this makes sense to me. So say some fetus can experience sound, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the next moment it can experience vision. Does that become more valuable to you?
Yes.
Does that mean blind people are worthless to you?
Simpliciter, yes.
Really?
Simpliciter. In other words, if all ceteris paribus, simpliciter, yeah. Like if
everything all things equal.
All things equal, yeah, absolutely.
Why? Okay. I mean, if you feel that way, you feel that way. This is just me like expressing
why you feel. I can ask about why you care about 1 second before the vagina.
I know. I just that was just more of an expression of how I feel about it than it is like an actual.
Like I am like hearing the 1 second before the vagina, 1 second after the vagina, and I'm expressing like I internally, mentally right now. I'm like, why? Like, right? I mean, it's the same.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. I think we're both on the same page of that. It's just. I guess I was taken aback that you said that. I wasn't expecting it.
Yeah.
Really, it's just a blind person is worth less than a person with vision.
Of course.
Like, we're talking about, like, fully formed adult people. I
understand what we're talking about. I'm not saying they're so, like, I'm not saying the difference in value to me is, like, so substantial or something.
No,
they wouldn't be like, but yeah, of course. Like if they have a modality of sentience that's lower, then yeah. Like all things equal, if I could save the blind person versus the non-blind person, I would save the non-blind person.
Even if those people can evaluate their lives as equally purposeful, just the fact that one is blind.
When you say purposeful, like I don't know what that.
Like, such that they have the capacity to look back at their life and say that was meaningful to me. The things that I did were meaningful.
Yeah, no, I.
But you'd say, well, okay, despite the fact that you both find your lives equally meaningful, you just don't have vision.
You have less sentience. Yeah, that's a modality. Yeah, it's not vision simpliciter. It's because you don't have vision, you have less sentience. That's like so it's not vision simpliciter. It's not like that. It's that this mental faculty cashes out to some other mental trait. And
such that it would be the case that if something could experience 1 pixel of vision, something can experience 2 pixels. 2 pixels is just more valuable.
Yeah.
I can't say that the mental qualities do it for me like that.
Okay. So then the question would become then, so what mental qualities do it for you? Like do push you in the direction? Like are there any mental qualities that would push you in the direction that prior to being born, you think that, well, let's just say it like this. Are there any mental qualities that push you towards the individual being in the non-chop me up category?
Yeah, well, we approached this question earlier when you asked me about like a self-aware creature, and I said, yeah, if it's
Oh,
self-aware.
besides self-aware, because like that's not a trait different. Like, but hold on, because that's not a sentience. Like, I'm looking for symmetry breakers, right? Like I'm looking for potential mental symmetry breakers.
Well, you just asked me if there was any mental
Yeah.
situation.
Okay, no, let me rephrase the question then. Is there any? Do you think there are any, along this spectrum of fetus to developed individual? Do you think there are any symmetry breakers, on the mental spectrum that would make that would push you towards the don't chop me up category versus chop me up category?
Are we talking about like mental qualities that we expect to happen right now from a fetus to 9 months?
Yeah, like from a fetus to birth, really, to like a 1 day old newborn, right?
Yeah.
So like imagine, yeah. So like,
So,
is there?
So any mental quality that would be typical of that.
Yeah.
I don't know, some sort of formation of values.
Well, is that? I mean, do you think that's present in a 1 day old baby?
Well, they value things. You know, they'll be hungry. They'll value not being in pain, comfort.
Well, I think that's true of a fetus as well.
Yeah, sure. But but this was a question from fetus to birth, right?
Okay, so yeah. So I'm looking for if there's any differences.
But
like,
then I'm wondering if there's like a scale of that, and I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's any like real appreciable difference. Like it's depending on which state. Like, I mean, maybe there is, but maybe I don't know. I just like ultimately here's where it's going to come down to. Like what it's come down to is like I just don't understand. Like I don't get why someone would put a baby in the not okay, like a 1 day old baby into the not permissible to chop up category, but a 8-month-old fetus or something in the permissible to chop up category. Like I just don't get it.
Or like, even just a gray area of like unsurety.
I don't get why
like you would think it just shouldn't be unsure at this point.
Yeah, I think even a gray area. Like at 8 months, I don't even understand why it would be a gray area. I think it would be like clearly don't chop me up. Like and if someone wants to say like okay, like you have this view that at 8 months gestational time, it's okay to chop the individual up. You have this view at 1 day post birth, it's not okay to chop the individual up. Like why the fuck? Why? What's the difference? Like we don't have to go. We can make it more simple by going to late term. So let's just start there. Like, okay, so, let's say you have an 8-month-old gestational time fetus. Like, do you think it's in the permissible to chop up category? I mean, let me just get a picture of what this looks like.
Sure. Well, yeah, but if you give me a picture and it affects me, then you're gonna know that part of the physical nature of it.
But that's important though, because I want you to. Well, then that's still important because then the symmetry breakers you just didn't happen to know what it looked like.
Sure.
But that's valuable because I want you. But then it's just something you didn't know about it, and if I could show you that here's what it what it actually looks like.
It's just so weird to me that you would appeal to what it looks like because you spent so much time trying to.
I'm not appealing based on my views. I'm appealing based on what
I know.
Yeah, because you're telling me like you're valuing like the physical development of the body to some degree. So like that's why I want to show you what it actually looks like.
I think I am because like even when you said let me show you, I'm just like it's like, oh no, what might I see?
Right, exactly. Like if you see something that looks like a baby, you're like, holy shit! Like maybe this really isn't in like chop me up category. Like I'll just give you like this artist well, we can start with this and we can go to ultrasounds if you like, but like here's like a classical like illustration of
by an artist. Oh, they're gonna pull at my heartstrings, aren't they? Let me see this.
Well, no, this is like I don't think it's
any like give me.
Yeah, like let's just take this for example, right?
Right. See, I would if I had to hold this chart while performing the operation, it would be so much harder.
So like now that we know, like for example, like okay, so this is, let's just take, hypothetically speaking, let's just say this artist rendition, which is like all over the net, and like there's various like iterations. Like I can show you another one. It looks like, it looks like this.
Mm-hmm.
I can show you, another one.
It looks so real.
It looks like this, but well, I mean, they are real. Well, they're artist renditions, but like it looks like this.
Uh-huh.
So like, on this, now that you've seen, assuming like all these different artist renditions
were accurate,
represent to some like reasonable degree of accuracy what's actually happening. Like, let me just ask you this now. Like, do you think the 8 month 8 month
8 months.
Yeah, so that's like 34 weeks, right? 8 months is 34.7 weeks, so 35 weeks actually, right? So like, so let's just take the
36.
That's 35 weeks, but let's it's close enough to 36 weeks. It's 8 months is 34.7 weeks. So like, but it doesn't matter. I can just say it's 8.5 months, right? Because if you have people have this position, 8.5 months is 37 weeks. It's 36.9 weeks.
I wonder if there just would be a certain conjunct where you could bring in your wizard and he pops out that 36-year-old, not 36 years.
Wait. Let's just keep on track. So 8.3 months is 36 weeks, right?
Yeah.
So okay, so let's say that, so do you think that this 36 week, so now that you've seen this, do you think that the 36 week is in the permissible, if the fetus is in the permissible to chop up category?
I don't know. I'm somewhere. I have to look at it. It's just like it pushes me into that gray.
Okay, so
it pushes me more towards it.
Yeah. Okay. So now, now your view is shifting, right? So like before it was like, it seemed like, yeah, maybe like, at 36 weeks I'll chop it up. But now that I've shown you what it actually looks like, you're more like, oh, wait a minute, hold on.
Yeah, maybe. But okay, so earlier you brought in this magician who could just pop it out, right?
Well, there's a specific reason I brought that in, right?
No, I know, but I want to use that example because I think it's also relevant here. Is that like if you pop out this 32 or this 36, it's just like, I don't know. If someone had to interact with that out in the world, I think it would be so hard to be able to kill it again. Like, it might actually be relevant, the fact that you popped it out at that point.
But do you think that it would be relevant to the point where you would be okay with chopping it up before it was popped out?
Like, I'm just saying that I feel like the popping out and putting back in might have shifted it to some degree.
Really? Like, even if it's like for a nanosecond, right?
Well, if people just don't even... if it's so fast people don't experience it, then that might not be the case.
Right. But the point then would be it would still not be the case that the criteria is it having already been birthed.
Right. But like the birthing would be more just like a way of experiencing it in a different environment.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's like that's what gives the birthing the relevance, right?
Right. So if it was like quickly birthed and quickly put back in, right? So if it was like quickly birthed and quickly put back in, now does it go from a state of being permissible to chop up to being not permissible to chop up?
Well, I'm still unsure.
Yeah.
But I think there's like
you're not but you're not even sure about the 36, so that wouldn't even be a good way to do it. So like let me just, in order to do that, I have to say like, okay, at what point are you confident that it's in the permissible to chop up category? Like, do you think like week 16, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that's in the permissible to chop up category?
Yeah.
Okay. So do you think that if week 16 was like quickly birthed and quickly unbirthed, right?
Uh-huh.
Do you think that would be now no longer permissible to chop up and they'd have to carry to term?
What do they even make noises? Do they cry? Would it cry?
I'm not sure. I mean, maybe. I mean, let's just say that they won't, right?
I mean, my
But the
intuition says it's not a big deal.
but wait. So what's the answer to the question? So is the answer to the question that now they will not have the now that it's not the case that it went from being permissible to chop up to not being permissible to chop up?
No, I don't think it's changed.
Okay, so then the act of, so here's the point I'm trying to make. The point is that this act of being birthed, right? It just doesn't seem like that's, when you really think about it, like that is like changing our valuation.
I don't think that's actually true. I just think like I think like it's a shift. It's a shift in value, but if the shift goes, it's just like you have a puddle and you add a cup of water to it.
I can,
you still got a puddle.
I mean, I think I can show that it's not even a shift. So for example, I can keep scaling this up. So like, for example, like let's say instead of 16, I give you the same example as a 20 week, right?
Yeah. No, so I think there might be an example somewhere in the middle.
Do you think there's some week? Yeah. Do you think that there's some week such that if it came out and you would experience it and then it would go back in, it has shifted. Yeah. I think there might be some point. Even if it's like we time equal, so it's not because that week, it's not in virtue of that week taking up the act of birthing and unbirthing taking up some amount of time, and now it's just an older fetus, right? It's not.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah. It's just like the act that it, because it went, so like it's like let's just say like a 28 week old fetus, right?
Sure.
Like if it's in the do you think that like if it was birthed and unbirthed?
Yeah. I think there might be some point along the timeline where that would have shifted it. It's just that it doesn't do enough for the 16.
Okay. So Yeah, that's weird. I mean,
I might even think it's weird, but it's just I can't deny that it's how it's affecting me. And I mean, that might be common among people for whatever reason.
I mean, let's say it was just teleported. Instead of birth, let's just say it was teleported out of the womb and teleported back into the womb,
such that we experience it out in the world.
Yeah, we see it for like a microsecond, right?
You always say like a microsecond. I don't even. If you want to ask me what it would feel like to experience something for a microsecond, I'm not even sure I can give an answer.
Okay, for us, 1 second.
It's just like, wah, and then it's gone.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of an impression that would make. Why don't you just make it something reasonable, like 5 minutes?
Okay, so it's out for 5 minutes and then it's back in the same state it was in before. Like all the different like qualities are there.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see how that would shift someone's dispositions.
What is it? Well, I understand it could shift people's dispositions, but what is it about? Is it the fact that they can see it?
Yeah.
About like, okay, so let's say like if the womb was transparent.
It's a different way of experiencing it, isn't it?
So let me ask you this. Like, so if women had transparent skin and wombs, like you think that the 20 now you think that would like make or break a difference? Like
I think that could make a difference. I would not be surprised if that made a difference. Different way.
I'm not asking if you would be surprised if that made a difference to like. I'm just for you. Would that make it? Do you think that would make a difference for you?
Well, remember, like I'm a descriptivist, so I'm using my experiences as particulars to try and understand how I would feel about things. And the farther something is from reality, the less I have experience about explaining it. So I have to guess more. The more
you can instantiate this in your mind. Like you can imagine what it.
That's what I'm trying to do. But like what I'm saying is that my powers of imagination only go so far as to what the actual reality would be.
Right, but this doesn't take a lot of imagination. I mean, you can imagine.
I think. Easily. Oh no way! If I was in the real situation, I think it would be just. I think it would be different than what I would imagine. enough so that it might shift me. But like, so when I'm trying to give you a reasonable estimation,
Mhm.
and my reasonable estimation is that it would.
Yeah. Like if women were going around with like this see-through skin and a see-through
And we're all just like
uterus,
waving at the baby.
You may not wave back, but you can see the baby.
Yeah. And we're
Right.
watching it grow. Yeah, I
Yeah.
can't imagine that not affecting people. I couldn't
Yeah.
imagine it not affecting me.
Yeah. But now that you know this, it's just like, well, if the only difference is really like, if the only difference, like, okay, so like, the reason I'm asking is this is like, is the reason that birth is making the difference is the ability, is because like once it's birth for any amount of time, like you're able to see it. Like that's why I'm asking the question. Or is there something else about birth that's giving it value?
Well, I think the ability to see it is like it's like bond forming.
Okay. So now let me ask you this. So now let's say that so now back to the original question then. So like if the major brunt of what's moving it is of birth, if the major brunt of what's giving birth the difference is the ability to see it, if that you're seeing it.
Well, I don't know if it's major. I just think it's an
Oh,
aspect.
okay. Okay.
I think that's
Well, let's
about
just,
all I could confidently say
yeah.
without
Okay.
bullshitting.
But then let's, yeah, exactly. I agree. So let's say that, but then we're in the same issue, right? That we talked about before. So then let's just say that a fetus is birthed into a cloth, and it's just like this non-transparent cloth, and we can't see it. And we can't like hear it. It's like it's a soundproof cloth as well. We may be able to see the baby kicking, like we may, just like we can in the womb. Like you may be able to observe like some slight perturbation of the woman's skin, like just like you could see some slight perturbation of the cloth, like the baby kicking.
Uh-huh.
You may be able to feel the baby kick if you put your hand on the cloth, but you can't. The cloth is soundproof, just like the woman's womb is soundproof, and the woman, well, not soundproof, like soundproof going out the way, and you can't, such that you can't hear the baby. And it's see-proof. You can't like see through it. Like now, is it okay to like chop the
So
baby
it's like
up?
we're reducing it to just the knowledge that it's out,
Yeah.
right? Does that have also a degree of effect?
Yeah.
Yeah, it might. I could
Okay,
see
but
that.
clearly that degree is a lot less, right? I mean, like clearly it's like it's not
Yeah.
gonna, like, if, for example, if what's shifting you is like, if what's shifting about being birthed is like going from like, gonna shift you from like, okay, it's permissible and not permissible, like 28 to 27, like 28 to, or like go from like for example 32 to 20, like, sorry, 30 to 20, then just like equalizing all those other things out, maybe it'll go to 30 to 30, like 30 to 29 or something. Like it's not going to be like the same difference.
Mm-hmm. No, it would
So
probably have a different amount of effect, sure.
yeah, so just the knowledge that it's out of the womb, like, but that's important then, right? Because like now I can say, let's say we have a 36-week-old, let's just say something that you're okay with, not okay with chopping up, right?
Yeah.
So like let's just take, let's say, like, are you okay with, are you not okay with chopping up the 36?
It's very morally gray for me.
Are you not okay with chopping up the 40?
Probably not.
Okay. So
I mean, look at the thing. Jesus Christ.
yeah. So now I'll just point out to you, like, now we already agree that birth is not the sufficiency criteria for not being okay to chop up.
Sure.
I mean, or not the necessary, at least not the necessary.
No, it was sufficiency. It was sufficiency.
Yeah. Okay. So not being birthed is not the sufficiency criteria for being permissible to chop up. Because you also, because you look at it and you clearly see that it's not birthed, and you also see that it's not permissible to chop up.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so we agree that So
Like
is
the only way I
the
can like make sense of these has been by putting them on a spectrum. Like
well but that's fine. I'm
any
just pointing
attempt to
out.
be a hard, any attempt to draw a hard line has seemed to meet with
No,
failure
but
so
we can
far.
work with the spectrum too. No, it's fine. We can work with the spectrum. So okay, so now let's say we have, are you okay with chopping up the the 20 sorry, the you said you were okay with chopping up the 16, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if the 16 is birthed, right? Are you okay with chopping up the 16?
A birth permanently. It's not just a wizard again.
Yeah. Yeah, it's birthed.
Maybe no. I don't know.
20.
I mean, you're pushing me farther towards no. Obviously, the more you go along this chart, the closer to
No,
no I get.
I'm just trying to
So
figure
if
out
you're looking for a definite no, if that's what you're
yeah.
looking for, is
What's the first instance
let's
where
say
it's a definite
28.
no? Okay. So 28 is like a definite no.
Maybe even 24. 28,
okay, so
20, somewhere there.
Okay, 20. Let's just take 28 then. 20. Okay, so now, but it's a yes. But what is it? Is it a yes for in the womb chopping it up?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Now, if it is if it's birthed, if the 28 is birthed into a soundproof cloth, right? Now is it okay? Now is the 28 okay to chop up?
I don't know again.
If the 32 is birthed into a soundproof sorry, if the 20
we'll say definitely the 36 no.
If the so if the okay, so if the so hold on. So if the 28 is birthed permanently, is it okay to chop up?
No.
Okay. If the 28 is birthed into a soundproof cloth, is it okay to chop up?
I don't know.
Okay. So like that's what seems weird to me, right? Like the fact that all that's like you've gone from like, oh hey, it's not okay to chop this baby up versus I don't know if it's okay to chop this baby. But the only difference is a cloth was put around it.
Well, I mean, the cloth is symbolic of the way we can experience.
Right. But like to me,
right.
The way I
it's
would
not just because it's not like cloth equals negative.
No, I
value.
know, and it's not cloth simpliciter. It's like a cloth is put around it such that, okay. Let me do it like this actually. Let's do it like this. So, let's say a cloth is put around the 28-week-old. But the cloth will, that the cloth will be taken off the 28-week-old, in another, in like 20 weeks or something, right? Or like in like 18 weeks. In 18 weeks, the cloth will be taken off of the 28-week-old.
Yeah.
So like we're just equalizing it to like when you would see it, just like when you would see when you would complete the 9 months. So like if it's birth, it's not like it's going to spend its whole life in the cloth, right? It's not like you're never going to be able to experience.
Well, it's still going to, like, the development is still going to push it along, right? Is that what you were asking me?
No, let's just say it's going to stay. It's going to stay as a 28. It's going to stay at 28 weeks development for 18 weeks.
At 28 weeks development for 8 weeks.
Yeah. And you're gonna, and then what's gonna happen is you're going to remove the cloth. The cloth will be removed in 18 weeks, and you'll see the 28-week-old fetus.
And you're asking me if the time is increasing the value, the time out.
I'm asking you if what I'm asking you is if the knowledge that you will be able to, in some amount of time, actually see this individual, actually see this being.
Wait, was that something not true of the previous hypothetical when it came out under a cloth? It had to be there forever?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think.
Was that was the nature of your question? I mean, I took it to be the case that it was just under the cloth, and we were making a decision, not that it was under the cloth forever.
Okay, it's under so it's under the cloth, just so we're working on it. It's under the cloth, and in 18 weeks the cloth will be removed and you can see it. So the 28, it's okay to chop up. Wait, is it okay on your view to chop up? I forget.
Well, I said I don't know.
Okay, so let's go with a yes. When do you give me a yes?
That it's 24, okay.
20? Yeah, in the womb. When is it okay?
In the womb?
Yeah.
I don't know.
28, I think.
28, 32. Somewhere.
Like okay, so do you think it's okay at 28 to chop up in the womb?
28's a good starting point.
Okay. And if the 28-week-old fetus was birthed into the cloth, a cloth that will be removed in 18 weeks.
Then I said it was getting morally gray. And then you asked me if the 28 was just out and about and it's just a part of outside reality. I said no.
Right. So what seems weird about that, like, I mean, let's just say, because, I mean, what seems weird about that is just, like, I guess we just, like, let's just say that you were, like, in a different building. Like, you're not going to see it either way, right? Like, let's just say you were, like, I was asking you this question about a fetus that you would never see. Like, in person. You're just visualizing it. But you're never actually going to see it. Like, you're in a different building. You'll never hear it. Like, why would, if you're not going to see it either way, whether it's in a cloth or whether it's just because you're in a different building, like, why would you take a different view? Is it because you're just imagining that you can see it? Like,
I mean, I think that is the sort of things that cause moral dispositions, aren't they?
Yeah, but here's the thing. Like, if it's just because, if the difference then is just because you're imagining that you can, if the difference that's making it for you is just that you're using your imagination, because, like, you're not looking at the fetus either way. Like, this isn't it. Like, this is a fetus on the other side of the planet. I can say whatever.
Sure.
But you're gonna give me the same answers, and you presumably it's because you're using your imagination and you're imagining that you can look at the baby, right? Because, like, in the case where it's the cloth, you're imagining that you can't look at the baby because the cloth is around it. But when it's like, even though you really
I know it's out, and it's like, well, how does that knowledge affect me?
Well, hold on. No, I'm making a different point now.
Yeah.
Because the point I'm trying to make is that when you're using this thing, like, let's just stick with like vision. Like, let's just stick with, like, you can, when you say vision, you don't actually mean that you're seeing it. You just mean that, you can imagine, like, that scenario and seeing it, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're on the other side.
Well, it's not literal. I mean, no hypothetical is literal.
Yeah. No. I understand that. So if that's the case, I just don't understand why it wouldn't make a difference for you to imagine yourself inside the cloth with the fetus and actually seeing it in the cloth with it.
Yeah, but it just felt like cheating to your question.
Wait, what?
If I could just picture myself in the cloth, that seemed like it wasn't
right.
It wasn't answering the nature of your question.
But that's important now, because you can imagine yourself in the womb too, right? Like, you can imagine yourself. You can imagine yourself, like, in this first person perspective inside the womb and, like, looking at this 28-week-old fetus.
Sure, and that might change my dispositions, but I'm not sure what the point of this.
Well, if the very fact that you can imagine. Well, but the point is that if the very fact that you can imagine, if what is making something not now in the gray area, if you can chop it up or not, is instead of being permissible to chop up, if it is the case that you
it's not my ability to imagine. Hold on. like there's an idea of like imagining a hypothetical and saying what would I be like in this certain state of affairs, and then also a real state of affairs where I'm sitting there using my imagination are two different things.
Yeah, but like I guess I'm just not okay. So like
Like
you're
I
giving
thought all the nature of
yeah,
the questions were the first sort.
yeah. I just don't understand like like for me it would just be that um my knowledge that that this baby is um for me like that my knowledge of like I just wouldn't consider any of these things. Like to me like this idea that like okay like just to be able to say like it's birthed into a cloth and that somehow changes the status because like this cloth is um now I can't see through the cloth or I can't hear through the cloth.
Mm-hmm.
Like now it's like now that changes like the view I would have on whether it is okay to chop it up or not.
Right, like wouldn't if you had a crying baby in your hands just feel like it would be a different thing than if you didn't?
I mean, it would be a different thing, but I could never imagine that making or breaking a difference for me. Like I understand it would be a different thing, but
But would
that's
it
not what I
change your
find
moral
weird.
responsibility to it?
That's not even what I find weird to it. Like what I find weird to it is that it would change my moral responsibility such that it would make or break a difference between being okay or not being okay to chop it up, or being ambivalent about chopping it up.
I don't know. I think that's kind of just like normal, really. But
Well,
I was curious about like my initial motivations and wondering if you shared any of like the sentiments because I know you're partly utilitarian.
threshold deontologist.
Yeah, which is partially utilitarian.
Yeah. Well, but it's mostly deontic. It's described as mostly deontic. And the reason it's described as mostly deontic is it actually takes a lot of utility difference to like make or break the how it
Well, I
what a
don't think
threshold
that's
uses.
true of all threshold deontological
That's
positions.
true. It's not true of all, but it's true of most.
Okay. Either way,
Yeah.
is there like a certain set of empirical data that you could be given that shows that people who have people who have children that they don't want end up with incredibly miserable lives, and so do the children. Is there any degree of that that would change your dispositions on whether it was okay to have abortions or not?
Yeah, the same degree of it would be the same for me. It would be the same, if not very close, to the degree of data that I would make me say, okay, like given this much suffering, it's okay to chop up your child. Like if you can
So,
give
so it
me,
makes no difference that the child is out than if it's in
yeah,
when considering the scenario.
yeah, exactly. Like if you can give me
Does
some
that
like
count for like a 5-year-old child?
no, I'm talking about like when I would be okay with chopping up like a 1 day old child, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm just wondering how far I could scale that.
Well, no, because a 5 day old child has I mean, I would treat that differently. I would treat because it actually does have like um a greater degree of sentience.
Is
Has,
there like a degree of sentience that you
yeah.
recognize that gives it some sort of deontic rule that's pushing it past this threshold, or
Yeah,
requires a
it
new
would have
even?
a higher. It would have like, in other words, more people would need to suffer to the point where I would say it's okay to kill the 5 year old than I would say it's okay to kill the 1 day old, right?
Uh
So like there
huh.
would be a higher utility cost to which I would say, okay, it's okay. Like at some point, I would say this for any person. Like I would say it for an adult. Like there is some utility cost in the world by which I would say, okay, now it's okay to kill the adult, right? Because like I'm not like for
Yeah. No,
example,
but
if
I'm interesting. I'm interested on how the amount of utility required for this changes based off of the capabilities of, and I assume it's mental capabilities because that seems to be what you
yeah, no,
care
it's
about,
mental. Absolutely, yeah, yeah, yeah. So like, so
right? So if Bree, for instance,
yeah,
had the same capacities as a 1-year-old child, or
mhm,
whatever, we don't have to bring Bree into it. We can just say
yeah,
just a hypothetical marginal case who's 16 years old, right?
mhm.
Somebody has been taking care of it for 16 years versus a 1-year-old, and the same data is showing that if they continue to take care of it, that there's this threshold of miserableness. You'd be like, it's the same of killing this 1-year-old as killing this marginal case.
Yeah.
We do have very different values. You're not wrong.
No, and that's fine. But I could, despite the different values, I think
Because,
yeah,
well, hold on. It's not even a day-year-old versus the 16-year-old. For you, it was a 6-week in the womb versus.
Oh yeah. If that can be shown to have like the same degree of sentience as Brie, for example, like I would say like the same amount of utility would be required to make or break the difference between chopping up either of them. Yeah.
Okay.
Of course.
I mean, you say of course, but of course is only forceful for you, for your experiences.
No, I'm absolutely, that's absolutely my view.
Yeah. No, I just take of course means like, yeah, I stand by this.
Of course on my
I stand by this. This feels right to me. Yeah.
Yeah, like of course being like, yeah, to me it's like easily, it's not like a difficult head scratcher question for me. Like that's just like a very, very easy question to answer.
Okay, sure.
But for you, like I would want like to me it would sound very, very weird to be like, if this really did happen, where like, like just imagine this actually happening in the world. Like if you had a 28-week-old baby that was just birthed into a soundproof cloth, like versus a 28-week-old baby that was birthed into a see-through cloth, right?
Uh-huh.
And like so you have two babies now. They're twins. They're identical twins. One
Sure.
is birthed into a cloth that's not see-through, and one is birthed into a cloth that's see-through.
I think I would just treat them as whichever one has more value.
Well, no, but they're identical in every other way.
Well, I know, but the fact that I know one is there
Yeah.
and the other is there would just force me to treat them as whichever one had the higher value.
Wait, what do you mean force? I don't understand. Like force you to treat.
Like I would have that sort of value disposition of knowing that there is this one. Whichever one was affecting me more I would probably apply that concept to the other one.
Okay. Well, but there's still some things that wouldn't be the case. Like you still can't see the other one.
Yeah, I know that. But I'm just saying this is like this twin factor that you added changes my dispositions.
Okay, so if they weren't twins, if they were just like if they were non-twins, like there's two babies.
But even then, like these are like gray areas, right? Like they're not even like knowledge areas.
No, but what I'm trying to that's fine. But what I'm trying to point out is that if I had two 28-week-old, average 28-week-old fetuses that are birthed into cloths, and one cloth is, see-through, and the other cloth is not see-through.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't imagine saying that, one I am not okay with chopping up, and one I'm ambivalent about chopping up, or gray about chopping up.
I mean, gray is definitely a different word than ambivalent.
It's true. That's true. I agree. So gray. Let's just say, but it's the same. I would have the same view in either one. So sure. I couldn't imagine saying that, in one of those, cloth baby bags, I would be not okay with chopping up, but the other one that's not see-through, I am okay. I'm either okay or gray about chopping up.
Uh-huh.
Like I couldn't imagine like looking at those two different cloths and saying that.
I mean, I can't imagine there's a huge difference either, but it might be a difference. Like I'm only trying to guess at my intuitions in these very weird situations, but I could see how it could affect me.
Right, but what I'm looking for is like, what I'm really looking for here is that like, even if you can see, like, even if you could point out this thing that like might like affect you, like I want you to also like evaluate like how much force is that really affecting you, like, because all of these things, right? The reason we're bringing it up is because it's like the distinction between birth and not birth. Like before birth, like this thing is like you can't see it, even though it's there. Like you're just not able to see it, or you're not able to hear it, right? Like it. Like,
well, I feel like when you get to like these like very minute categories, it's very hard to suss out my intuitions, and it's only like clear if we go to bigger extremes. But then it's almost like, particularism.
yeah, but so the point, yeah, but the point is like, yeah, I mean, but still, the point is like, if I can get you to say like, okay, well, these categories that are coming from birth, these things that are stemming from birth, like, are really like, okay, I can see it making some difference, but it's very minuscule.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think if you wanted to say that, in this conversation we've had, you've made a decent case for the concept of birth to be a lot weaker than people initially suspect it is. I think you could say you successfully did that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So, so like, okay, because like when we started this conversation, you said like, okay, well, the symmetry breaker was coming to term, like, and coming to term means being birthed or something like that, developing fully and being birthed.
Well, I said that was like a sufficient condition.
Yeah, yeah. But now I think you've changed that.
Yeah, I think I would back off from that view. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And more broadly, this idea of birth versus not birthed is a very weak thing to put forward when we're looking at the value of an individual, of individual baby versus fetus or whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some degree of it, but I think it's weaker than suspected initially.
Okay, cool. Yeah. All right. So then I would just like have you reflect. Then what I would have you do is reflect on.
Oh, are you giving me homework?
Yeah. So what I would just have you do is like reflect on what you think are like what do you think are the differences in that spectrum that you think do carry like significant weight, and like it doesn't have to be like all the different like little like atoms or something. Like give me like just like a variable,
No, I know,
like with the Sardis paradox, like magnitude of water, like that's like.
But like I said, there are multiple values, like multiple axes,
Yeah.
and ultimately I'm guessing at the ones that I can think of, but it could be like a lot more than I think it is.
Yeah. Okay. So for you, like if you're like I guess we would say that like probably like if something is not okay for like I guess if something is not okay to chop up if it's outside of the womb, it probably should be somewhere pretty close to there inside the womb is what I'm trying to make. So like given if I've made the case that like okay, I've weakened the birth difference.
Sure.
Then looking at this like these drawings.
Yeah.
Like when would you say it's not okay outside of the womb?
Not okay outside of the womb. Well, I think we had 28 before. I'm still kind of feeling that.
Well, 28. Well, we had 28. I think 28 was inside the womb. I think. Well,
no, it was
outside the where
I don't think it was that much farther for inside either. Like it was like 36 or 32. It was somewhere in there.
Okay. So 20. Well, hold on. Is that true? So. Okay, 28 was inside the womb. 28 is the answer you gave inside the womb.
I don't think so.
Well, the reason I said the hypothetical is because outside the womb somehow like gave it value such that you wouldn't want to chop it up.
Are you asking me what was okay inside? Okay inside, not.
Yeah, what's okay inside the.
Oh yeah. I think it was somewhere around 28.
Yeah, 28. You said 28 for inside the womb.
I thought we were talking about outside.
Yeah. So 28 is when you're 28 is okay inside the womb, and past that you're not okay. So then what's the question for what is it for outside the womb then?
Like a definite is we can say 36.
Wait, now it's not making sense to me. Because now you're saying it's at a later time it's okay, but outside the womb. But now you're placing value.
Oh, okay to kill or not? Okay,
yeah, okay
sorry.
to kill is what I'm asking.
Outside. Then I think it was 24 or
Oh, okay,
20.
24. Okay. Oh, now it makes okay. So, okay, you would be considered you're like halfway, by the way. Like you're halfway pro-life, like you'd be considered like
Half-Life.
you'd be considered like you would
Half-Life
be considered.
3.
I just want to point out. See, like there are a lot. Like you would be considered pro-choice by a lot of pro-lifers, and you'd be considered pro-life by a lot of pro-choicers with the view you're having right now.
You know,
like-
in some degree, I'm just happy that there's laws for this and that I don't even have to consider it. Like
Yeah,
that,
but
I'm happy that it's not under my control.
Yeah, so I'm just pointing out like this is like if the initial thoughts about sentience were correct, you'd probably have the very similar view that the vegans that are aware of my arguments used to have. You know, that consciousness begins around 24 weeks gestational time. You know, that you would probably be in alignment with that. But for different reasons. Okay.
Yeah.
So all right. Now that what I just want you to think about is that what is it about a 20-week-old, right? Like what is it about a 20-week-old versus a 28-week-old?
I mean, part of it is just wanting to commit to some sort of chance that somebody can rectify their life. Like, I want to give some sort of chance for a mother to be able to say, I don't want a child.
So does it have to do like when? Well, wait a minute.
And then it's like that's pushing me to want to pick higher numbers, and then wanting to push me to lower numbers.
Well, wait a minute. I don't know if this is going to go where you want it to go, because like, let's say hypothetically there was like a group of women that just didn't find out that they were pregnant until like 36 weeks gestational time, right? So like,
no, I'm not saying this is like an absolute. You always have an option.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Right.
So like, okay, so you can, but here's the thing. Also, like, you don't have to put it at 24. Like, people realize they're pregnant way before 24, and these days they have access to have abortions like way before 24, or way before 20 even. In fact, most abortions, by the way, do you know when most abortions are performed?
No, not really.
They're performed
16?
before 8 weeks. No, they're performed before 8 weeks. The majority of abortions are performed, like, I think 65% of abortions are performed prior to 8 weeks.
I have a question. If you found out that sentience started immediately, just bloody immediately, there would just be no abortions.
Correct. Unless the degree of sentience was like such a tiny little minuscule speck or something, that like my view of like the
like a speck of light.
Like a speck of light, like that's it. Like then at that point there would be like some utility difference by which like the deontic weight is not even that great. Like I wouldn't even consider like that to be like have deontic rights that are that like potent. But like assuming that we're talking about like insignificant, non-minuscule like specks of light or something, like then there would just be no abortions.
Do you find sentience valuable even when there's like evaluation, evaluative aspect to it, like just a ton of light and a ton of sound?
Yes, sentient simpliciter. Yes.
You really don't think that like the thrust of sentience is just like experiencing value?
I do think that the thrust. No, I absolutely do. It does. I'm not saying that all types of sentience are weighted equally. I think that there could be there could be the thrust. I do think that the thrust of sentience is because people care about things. A lot of it has, to be more precise, a lot more moral weighting of types of sentience different types of sentience carry different moral weight. That would be the way to describe
Wait,
it.
wait, wouldn't this be a huge problem for you if panpsychism was true?
Yes. Well, I don't know. Actually, I don't know if that would be a problem for me.
Like, if you found out a camera was experiencing blueness, or all the things it was recording, but had no value or care about it.
Well, that wouldn't. Well, that may not. No, because on panpsychism, I don't know if that would be a problem for me if panpsychism was true, because on panpsychist views, like even like atoms are sentient, and
Sure.
like I don't know if, like, even if I were to smash this camera, right? Like, I wouldn't know if that would be causing more or less sentience, because, like, you know, if I take
Okay, I see your point, because it would break down into more sentient things.
Yeah, it would break down into more atoms, and like maybe like the collective of those atoms would actually generate the same amount of sentience as the camera, like, or maybe more. Like, I have no fucking clue. Like, if panpsychism was true, I might be like, I don't think I would change the way I act, because
no, that might change the way you act, because killing people would be the same amount of sentience.
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's true as well. Like, killing individuals, yeah, in fact, yeah, exactly. Like, I would have to think about if killing individuals would produce like more or less sentience. Like panpsychism. Like, I'm very happy I have like I'm almost positive panpsychism is not true. Like, holy shit, that would be very weird.
You know what? I started with the view that panpsychism was crazy, and now I think I still don't believe it, but I still think it's stronger than I initially thought it was.
Like, this idea that
I think the case that, like, properties of material tend to be universal has some thrust to it, at least, right? It's like all matter has mass, all matter occupies an amount of space.
Well,
to say that, like, phenomenological, like, a property to something might also be universal doesn't sound as initially crazy as I thought it was. It's just, it wouldn't be anything like what we experience it like, and I still think the combination problem is devastating for panpsychism.
That's just, well, but here's the thing. Like, matter is just defined as any substance that has mass and takes up space by having volume. Like, that's just an analytic entailment.
I don't think it's analytical entailment. I mean, like, if you define it that way, but I think you could say
that is the definition. That's the definition of
sure. All right, like, if you want to say it's definitional, but what I'm saying is you can logically separate something that takes up space and mass.
Well, I mean, wait. So,
right, like, you could say something has volume but doesn't bend space-time. To any degree.
Like space itself, well, even space, I don't. Yeah, but I mean, I'm sure you can logically separate those things. But I'm saying, like, there may be things that, like, there may be things that bend space that may, like, well, I have to think. Like, there may be examples of things that don't, like, universalize, right? So, like, you know, electrons have a spin property. They have, like, an angular momentum intrinsic to them. They have an upspin and a downspin. But, you know, when we take all the electrons and, like, we put it together in, like, you know, into, like, an organism, or like a current, even a current. So let's make it simple. Like, if we run electrons through a current, the current doesn't have a spin property. Even though the current is just made up of a whole bunch of electrons. And that's all it's made up of. Like, it's just a bunch of electrons, like, going through a wire. But that current doesn't have a spin property. I think there are many examples of matter.
But the electrons in it do. Like, can we call the current?
No, but the electrons in it do. But the point is that But
you want to call the current matter.
You want to call I want to call the current. Oh, well, the current is energy. It's better described. It's like.
Well, wouldn't it just be a collection of matter, and it's conceptual?
Yeah, it's a collection of matter that's going through. Let me think of an example the other way around, because, like, I want to give an example of, like, some, like, oh, I can do it like this. So, because I want to think of, like, okay.
Hold on, because I really have to use the bathroom, and
sure.
I kind of want to go.
Oh yeah, sure. So real quick, like a shirt can have the color blue, right? A shirt can have the color blue, but the individual atoms of that shirt don't have the color blue. It's just a quality they don't have.
Yeah,
so like,
but that's because like a shirt is a collection of matter. It's not.
But like at some point,
It's
that
not
collection of matter produces the color blue.
I mean, I don't even want because then we have to go into what color is, which is
that's fine.
light photons bouncing off of things, and it's not a property of the shirt.
That still works. But that still works. Like you can have like the molecules, and you can break the molecules up into atoms that don't bounce off that color. It's still going to work. The point is that there are many examples where on the macro scale we have certain qualities that if we break it up into its constituent components.
I'm not sure I agree, but I really have to go.
All right, here, all right, later. Yeah.
All right.
And then, if you want to look at the peer-reviewed on that, I recommend it too. On abortion.
Okay. All right. Bye.